We are live. Good Monday evening, Lions fans. Yes, it's 3 days later, but I am here to talk about the Lions preseason game number one at the New York Giants, the same team that they had the joint practice with. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to record this recording earlier to talk about the game, but hey, better late than never. And you know what? We miss you all. We miss talking Lions football. Listen, I know that we have not been around since I want to say late April, early May, but it's time to get back into football. Listen, there's a lot of things that's happening, but I don't see the need to get out there and talk about every little thing. Hey, so and so tight end number three, you know, his pinky toe nail came off. So let's do a podcast about that. We like to just try to get right into the meat and potatoes of it over here at the Lions Den. And that's what we are doing, ready for this 2024 season. Let's get right into it. I want to give some thoughts on the Lions 14-3 loss to the New York Giants. Pretty much we saw all backups. Not pretty much. We saw all backups. The only starter, which is a potential starter, would be rookie Tyrion Arnold, who did play. I want to say he played 7 or 8 plays. So I want to talk about what stood out to me watching the backups. Now, unlike some, I'm actually a fan of the preseason. I like the fact that young men and even some veterans can get out here, people who are really hanging on. Because to be honest with you, if you're not a starter every single year, you're pretty much hanging on to stay onto the team. So I love to see veterans and especially the young players get out here, play football. For some of them, this is their only chance to play in the NFL. Their families probably come to the game. I would be proud if one of these young men were my family member and they were playing in the game. Like I said, this may be the only time they ever get to play in the NFL game. So that's why I like to support the preseason. But let's start with what I saw out there. Let's start with the offense. Now, we are looking at the statistics. Some of the things did not stand out in statistics, but we will still look at them anyway. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Looking at these numbers, Nate Sudfeld went 13 of 24 for 96 yards in the interception. Now, if you look at that, you will say, well, he threw at slightly over 50%. But I was not impressed with Nate Sudfeld. I would give him a C plus. Going up against second, third, and fourth stringers, he looked rattled. The balls that he missed were bad. The interception was not a good interception. And remember, I think he'll hang on to this team. He may be quarterback number 3, but he's out there trying to be the backup quarterback, which brings us to Hendon Hooker, the guy who I believe is going to be the backup quarterback. He went 5 for 9 for 36 yards, but what was impressive was the 4 carries for 34 yards, and especially that play where he lowered his left shoulder into one of the Giants defenders, showing that he's not fragile and he's out there to make plays. Now, unfortunately, he went out in the game, and they said that it was a concussion. So I don't know what that means for this week. I want to say Saturday, not Friday, but Saturday. They're in Kansas City. So I don't know if he will actually be able to play or not. I really hope that he can because I like what I saw from Hendon Hooker. And as far as a backup quarterback, I think that we have something there with the young man. I think that if and this is a big if Jared Goff goes down, I think that he may do a decent job of carrying the Lions, but let's just hope it doesn't come to that. As for the running backs, the rookie Siani Vaki was the only guy who really stood out. He carried the ball 4 times for 29 yards, but it was the runs that he made that really made him stand out. And he, you got to remember, there are guys going for that number 3 spot. Now, some of you know how I have a soft spot for Craig Reynolds. I hope that Craig Reynolds picks it up. Not only is Craig Reynolds a decent number 3 running back, but he's actually a good special teams player. So if nothing else, his courage, his special teams, his leadership is enough to keep him around. But remember, if you look at the screen right here, you see all of these guys going for that number 3 spot. And I thought that Backy did a very good job of that. Before we get to the receivers, I would like to talk about the offensive line. Now, on the offense, that is something that I was not impressed with. I was not impressed with the backup offensive line. I felt that these guys were getting stood up a lot at the line of scrimmage. They didn't have push when we had 3rd and 1. You know how, and I think one play was like a 4th and 1 or 1.5. You know, Dan Campbell likes to go for it on fourth down. Our starting offensive line would have got that push and got these guys to get the first down. These guys didn't get any push. So I think that we will be in trouble if any of our starting five offensive linemen go down. As for the receivers, yes, Isaiah Williams, some people said they were impressed with him. His 4 receptions for 35 yards. To be honest, I was not impressed with the backup receivers. I did not see a legit number 3 receiver. Now, we didn't see Khalif Raymond, but and he could be the number 3. But if one of these guys are supposed to be the backup number 3, look, if you look at the screen, you can see the guys that are on this screen. I was not impressed. I give these guys a C minus, and that is just me being generous, to be honest. I give them a C minus. I didn't see anything impressive out there. Now, granted, some of you could say, well, no, come on, man. Look at the guys who were throwing the ball. I hear you, but some of these guys had balls near them that they did not catch. Let's move on to the defense. The stats don't show everything, but I'm going to tell you some of these guys right here on this defense that did impress me. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, I mean, some of you know that he's one of my favorite Lions. I don't think he's going anywhere. He's a standout backup linebacker and good on special teams. I thought that Isaac Akwu looked pretty good. Listen, he had 2 tackles and a sack, but that doesn't tell the whole story. It was the way that he was disrupting and pushing the inside. The same with Broderick Martin. Now, this is a guy that I really want to watch this all season because he was hurt pretty much all of 2023, his rookie year. I thought that Broderick Martin did a good job of getting his hands moving, getting his body moving, and disrupting runs. And it was one more guy, Lions fans, on the line. I cannot remember who it was right now, who I actually saw out there, and I thought, oh yeah, it was the rookie, um, the kid from Makai, for the kid from LSU. I thought that he also did a very good job. I don't see him. His last name slips my mind, people, but I was trying to see, maybe he didn't get a tackle, but I'm just going by what my eyes saw, that he was actually disrupting the middle of the line. See, that's what we're going to need. We're going to need push in the middle of the line, and we know that the Lions, Aaron Glenn, they like to run different D linemen out there. We need some guys that can come in and get some push. As for pass rushing on the edge, I really didn't see much. Let's talk about the DBs. Who stood out? I mentioned Tyrion Arnold earlier. Tyrion Arnold played a few plays, but who really stood out was Ennis Rakestraw. Speaking of which, he may be hurt, and who knows if he'll play this week. But he out there with a Mick Robinson is fighting for that big nickel spot because Brian Branch may be playing more safety. I want to say that Rakestraw played quite a few plays, man. 16, 17 plays, maybe even a little bit more than that. He was out there for a while. He made a good tackle. He was in position where he needed to be, and he did a pretty good job covering. And then we will wrap it up by talking about special teams. I wasn't that impressed with the return team, as you see Maurice Alexander, who actually bobbled a couple of balls, and I'm gonna give him a little bit of credit because I mean it was that kind of weird rain where it wasn't hard rain, it was that drizzling, annoying rain that makes the ball slippery. He did have 2 kick returns for 28-yard average, which is not too bad. Didn't do much on punt returns, but like I said, I know that the ball was slippery out there, but he has to do a job. He has to do a better job of protecting the ball if he wants to earn that spot. Jake Bates, a guy that I did a video on earlier in the UFL season. He went out there, went 1 for 1, and it was a 53-yard boomer in that bad weather. That was impressive. Now, unfortunately, I read some things about Jake Bates that not this past Friday, but the Friday before. They said he had a very bad practice. He went 6 for 6, and they said he actually has been struggling. Now, listen, kicking is hard, but I don't really get what was the difference between him kicking in the UFL where he seemed to be money and kicking in the NFL, and now all of a sudden he's struggling. If Jake Bates wants to stick onto this team, especially with Badgley hurt, he needs to pick it up in these next 2 games. And Jack Fox was solid as usual. Look at these crazy numbers: 7 punts, 347 yards, with a 49.6 average, which means that he flipped the field every single time. Now, let's look at hold on, people. Let's look at some of this injury report because they did bring some things out on some injuries. I want to say just today. So let's see what they're talking about here. so we can see maybe what we might be looking at this week. All right, here we go. Going back to the 8th, this was after the preseason game. As you can see on the screen, Hendon Hooker is questionable with a concussion. He left Thursday out. He left Thursday with a concussion. Antoine Green, who I'm expecting more from to maybe try to get that spot, he's also questionable, left with a concussion. James Houston suffered a bone bruise in his knee. He's also questionable. And defensive tackle David Bada suffered an Achilles injury in Thursday's game, which does not sound good. On the 9th, they said Sam Laporta had a hamstring, but I don't expect to see him play against the Chiefs. August the 11th, defensive end Nate Lynn had a shoulder injury. He's on the injured reserve. I feel bad for young players like that because these like Bada and Lynn, these are guys that need to get out there to make an impression on the coaches. And then today, we hear that Jahmyr Gibbs is questionable with a leg injury. I didn't think he would play anyway. Connor Galvin, he does need to get out there and play, but he's on injured reserve. Arnold, it says, was forced to leave Monday's practice early with an upper body injury. Maybe we will see him in another 6, 7, 8 plays. And Rakestraw, who I would like to see more of, had to leave. He had to leave practice early Monday after sustaining an ankle injury. So we don't know. He's questionable. Who knows? By Saturday, we have 5 more days. He could be just fine. All right, Lions fans. That's all I really have on this one. I just want to get in here real quick and give you guys some thoughts on that first preseason game, what I like and what I did not like. Oh, yeah, I didn't give any grades on the defense. Let me run through them real quick. The defensive line, I will give a solid B. The linebackers, I will give a C plus. The DBs, I'm going to give a B minus because I thought that they did fairly decent. And for special teams, I'm going to give them an A. I'm gonna give Jake Bates credit for that 53 yarder in the rain, and Jack Fox was just out there doing Jack Fox things. All right, Lions fans, we are back. I know that we have been gone for a minute. Hey, I have to apologize for that, but hey, it just be what it be sometime. But let's just get ready for this 2024 season. All right, Lions fans, if you haven't already, you see our TikTok on the screen. Yes, we haven't been on TikTok in a minute, but we're going to get back on it with the season coming up. You saw the flasher with our Twitter/X on there a little while ago. And of course, there is our YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe and support us over there. And let's see what happens this Saturday. Preseason game, week 2 against Kansas City. And that's all we have for now. Peace.